Welcome to the Bold Money Revolution podcast. This is your source for straight talking, no fluff, business and high performance conversations that add real depth and value to the way bold leaders live, work, and thrive. I'm your host, Tara Newman. I'm here to show you how to optimize your performance as a leader so that you can grow a business that is profit-rich, efficient, and allows you to generate real, tangible wealth for yourself and others. We are here to help you lead with your values, to perform without overwhelm and burnout, and to do your most important work in the world. Hey, bold leaders. It's Tara here from the Bold Leadership Revolution and the founder of the Bold Profit Academy. This week, I'm sharing an interview I did with my buddy, my dear friend, Meg Casebolt, founder of Love at First Search and the host of the Social Slowdown Podcast. Meg is one of my absolutely diehard favorite humans, and we work together in my business. I hired Meg and her team to support us with SEO strategy. And I know there are a lot of women in the Bold Profit Academy who are also delighted with her expertise in generating leads away from social media. And who doesn't like the thought of being away from social media? I mean, you all know I have a complicated relationship with social media, and that's why I love unpaid growth strategies, working with Meg around SEO, and being able to unplug myself from the matrix. Now, Meg knows her craft inside and out. She is a bona fide expert with SEO and organic lead generation through targeted content strategies. That's why we love each other. We speak each other's love languages. Our focus over here at the Bold Money Podcast and the Bold Profit Academy is to show women small business owners just like you how to get paid like the expert you are and how to create a bold profit business without burning out. Meg and I also share the belief that the way the web celebs, those interweb gurus, would have you believe business needs to be run is leading to wildly off-base, nervous system frying, high hustle, and low yield results. And I imagine if you're here, you have been through that ringer a few times. In this conversation with Meg, we talk about how to get super clear on how much money you need to make, how to use your revenue goal calculator to do that, and why it matters to start from this point. I really enjoyed digging into why having a big audience to make large revenue is a myth. And I always love busting that one. And how when you create the right product for the right audience, you really can start to get paid and build wealth. Finally, right? Let's stop giving our money to people like Zucks. He doesn't need more wealth. Let's build our own wealth. Let's keep more of the money we are making. That's what I'm here for. I am excited to be hosting a webinar in a couple of weeks with Meg. And I would love it if you decided that you wanted to come hang out with me and my friend. We'll be talking about why you don't need more leads to make more sales. And you can sign up for that over at theboldleadershiprevolution.com/masterclass. I can't wait to hear your takeaways on this episode.
Hello, Tara. I am so excited to have you here to talk about different ways that we can market our business and be really profitable in our businesses without necessarily needing to have super bloated expenses. And I feel like you are the person to talk about this with. So really briefly, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and your business and who you help?
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm really excited to be here with you today as well. You're one of my favorite people. You are smart as a whip.
Oh,
and I always get so much out of our time together. So thank you for having me on.
I know we're supposed to do quarterly planning sessions, and sometimes it's like, well, let's just complain about things. Sometimes you need someone who's aligned with your values in such a way that it's like, we just understand each other, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm Tara Newman, and I am the CEO and founder of the Bold Leadership Revolution. And, I think just to be kind of quick about this is my mission is to really do maybe three things. One, take women from being fearful around money to being financial powerhouses. And that is like beyond a mission at this point. This is a mandate. And the reason why I actually use the word financial powerhouse is in a 2018 survey put out by American Express, the state of women's small business owners. They do an annual report, and they talk about how basically few women are making money in businesses. 88% of women, small business owners, are making under $100,000 in revenue.
So gross top line revenue,
So
not take home pay. We're talking about what your entire business makes.
Yeah. So let's be clear for a second. This was a 2018 survey. I don't think it's improved much.
Probably not.
Since then, to be quite honest. And at the end, they talk about women. Only 1% of women have businesses over $1 million. And what they say is that when you get to that point, you're this real financial powerhouse. And I was with them the entire survey and study until they said that. Because I think anytime that we can give women an understanding of how money works at any point, they become a financial powerhouse. And it may or may not lead to necessarily $1 million business, but it leads to a heck of a lot more good in the world than we have today. And so that's why I specifically use that term financial powerhouse, is because it really stuck in my craw a little bit from that survey. And then
I want to really quickly hop in here and say I have a master's degree in international development. I don't know if you know this about me. And one of the things that I wrote my master's thesis on is this idea of how when women get money, whether it's, in the developing world or here in, the United States where you and I are, but when women get money, entire communities are impacted. When men make money, it goes into boats and bank accounts, like that kind of, it tends to be more insular. Whereas when women make money, they hire other women, they invest in their communities, they make changes to the way that their households are running. I don't want to use the term empowerment because that feels like it's being pressed into somebody as opposed to coming from within, but it really does make a difference in not just that one person's life, but also the greater good around them. There's research around that. So this idea of being a financial powerhouse, it just resonates with me so much.
Yeah. And there's a lot of truth to that when men and women think about money differently and use money differently for sure. And then in order to do this, I'm a Profit First certified consultant. And so, I work very closely with Mike Michalowicz and the team over there at Profit First to help them with their mission around eradicating entrepreneurial poverty. But when it was really interesting that through my journey, I've been certified for a little over a year, and through my journey of working with women in this way in our program, the Bold Profit Academy, what I started to realize was his book starts way ahead of where we actually are.
Yeah.
And that when you look at what is happening in the female small business ownership space is a very unsexy thing that's called a lack of financial literacy and a lack of business knowledge. And if we can just plug some holes there and give women competence in business and money, then their confidence will grow truly, actually, and be embodied and not be fluffed up like what we're seeing in some of the online space today. And so it's very important to me to democratize business education for women and to do it in a way that reduces anxiety, is calm, and is a safe place for worn out and weary women business owners to land.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of shame around these conversations.
Tremendous amount.
Yeah, it's not just, what's your top line revenue? It's like, well, how did you not know that? And then we feel so guilty and shamed for not having these foundations. But so many of us, we don't have MBAs. We're not going through these processes of, coming up with these business plans. So many of us are bootstrapped, home-based, like this wasn't something that was the plan when we went to college. It was, some of us have advanced degrees, therapists and coaches and people who have really great trainings, but the trainings that we're talking about do not include business training. So you can be an interior designer and pass the ACID exam and have no idea how to price your services and have no idea what your markup should be and how to get clients. And that's missing. But because we've gone through this educational process, or because we have these skills, we don't want to acknowledge that there's a knowledge gap there.
Correct.
Oh,
That's why I really love working with experts because, I work with female experts who are amazing at what they do. They have done the schooling, they have done the years of professional development, they know how to get their clients results. And it's so frustrating to see them struggle financially to make money and to grow their business and to get clients. And at the same time, I know how sensitive it is because they've been rewarded for their being the expert. They've been rewarded for being all knowing. They've been rewarded for being seen in that way. And like they have to have all their shit together and, they have to have all the answers. And the reality is they don't even know what they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's terrifying. And I'm not here to be a guru. I am not here to be better than anybody else. As a matter of fact, please don't work with me if you need me, or you're looking for a savior. I'm here to stand shoulder to shoulder as an expert in what I do, partnering with you as the expert in what you do, and like making a really great team.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you make a really good point, which is that we are experts in our industry, having that insider knowledge of what it is that we do best. But the marketing and the sales and the delivery is not always something that's easy to understand. And so when you're in that space of I am an expert, but I don't know how to get clients, the narrative that is being sold to you in all of the places that most of us online business owners are looking is, well, here's the formula. Here's the solution. You can go create this funnel. And then if you run, Facebook ads to it, or if you have a really thriving social media presence, then people will go into the funnel and they will just automatically become your clients. And all you need to do is be visible. And there's that term of visibility that I feel like I hear all the time. And I'm like, visible to whom and for what is always my follow-up question, And one of the things that you told me on our first call many, many months ago now is I work with experts, not influencers.
Yeah.
And so I would love to hear you kind of make that differentiation of how you define an expert, how you define an influencer, how the ways that they make money can be different.
Yeah. All right. So listen, this is just one girl's opinion. I just want to set that up right now. I'm not pretending to be an expert on this at all. But here's just I'm just an observant person. And I think what's happening, and maybe, you can lead some insight to this too. And I just talked about this on a podcast episode that I did yesterday, is that experts are using influencer marketing tactics, and it's the wrong tactic for the business model. So influencers, and if you want to go into the Wayback Machine, if you're like where this all started and get a really cheeky view of it, go watch The Joneses with David Duchovny. I think it came out in 2009. I don't know if you saw that, but they were basically these influencers where they were driving around in all these fancy cars and their neighbors wanted to be like them. And meanwhile, they didn't have a pot to pee in, and, they were being subsidized by all these brands. And anyway, it's a really cute look at, influencers. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with influencer marketing. I actually think that it's a revenue stream. It's an option for people that's viable as long as you understand what it is and you are knowledgeable in it and you know to use the appropriate strategies. Influencers are selling their lifestyle, their identity to promote a product or a brand that they use. And, honestly, a lot of us do it.
Yeah.
A lot of us just do that. If I'm recommending a product, I'm being an influencer, whether I'm being paid for it or not.
But I think there's a difference between, being an affiliate for a program that's deeply aligned with our values or being, somebody who is saying, this is a product that I use and therefore you should use it. And I'm going to get sponsorship for the fact that I'm doing this.
And listen, there's sleazy and slimy crap in every industry and everything, right? And so, but if you're an influencer, it's a lot of inspiration content. It's a lot of, look at my lifestyle, look at how I use this thing, look at what I'm doing here, and swipe up and here's my link, and I need 10,000 plus gazillion followers because whatever, like that's how I get my brand sponsorships and things like that. So it's a different model. If you are an expert who's charging a premium price for your expertise and your service, you don't need tens of thousands of Instagram followers who are mostly bots, by the way. Go watch Fake Famous on HBO Max. And so you don't need that many people. So you need to be using your social strategy to make sales. How do you make sales using a social strategy? And here's where I think we get off. We're missing a gap. If everybody's like, what are my blind spots? Here's your blind spot. You are applying a tool without having a system or a process. So in the Bold Profit Academy, we teach the sales process. What are the steps in a sales process? And how do those steps align with your buyer's psychology, with the way your buyer is thinking, so that you can meet your buyer where they're at? So we're selling from a place of empathy, right? This is what we teach. And then apply whatever tool you want. Use Instagram, use a webinar, use an ad, however you want to use it, but at least understand where it fits in your process. For example, I think social media is a great sales tool. So back in the day, if somebody was going to come in and make a sale, like say like in a B2B environment, like a business to business environment, they'd pick up the phone, they'd say, hey, can I come in and make a presentation about my product? And like if they got through on that cold call, they'd say, sure, come on in. And then they'd open their PowerPoint and they'd walk you through a consultative selling experience where they are understanding what your needs are, and they're positioning their solution, and they're overcoming your objections, and they're making a sale. All we're doing now, or what we should be doing, is using like technology and online tools to do that. You no longer have to come on site and do a PowerPoint presentation. You can outline your PowerPoint presentation in Instagram. You can outline your PowerPoint presentation in a set of blog posts that are found through SEO. You can outline your sales presentation in a webinar. They're tools for a process, and we are missing that. Everybody's like, I need to jump on the latest fad. I need more eyeballs on my things, so I'm going to do Reels because Reels is adding, a gazillion followers to people's accounts in a very short period of time. No, you need to understand how to walk your buyer through a decision-making process to make a sale.
And the tool that you're using for that is irrelevant.
I mean, it's relevant in the sense that you want to pick a tool that your best fit client is using.
Yes. But it's not like this is everyone should be using LinkedIn because that is the best tool. It's, if you're working with corporate clients, you may want to post on LinkedIn. You may want to have a way to reach those people, so figuring out who your buyer is and where they're hanging out and finding a way to connect with them. But it doesn't have to be millions and millions and millions of connections.
No.
In order to make a single sale, right?
No, I mean, that's overwhelming.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I get folks who come into my programs who have been following some of these like online marketing, more traditional online marketing strategies, like webinar to funnel kind of, stuff, and running ads. And they have hundreds of new contacts being added to their active campaign, but they're not converting. And now they're managing all of these contacts and trying to figure out how to engage them. And they wind up just getting dumped essentially and ignored because there's no strategy or it feels too overwhelming for them. I have an incredibly small email list, but I use it very well because it's one of my primary sales tools.
It's not the size, it's how you use it, right?
I say that?
But I think it's true. You can have an email list that's tiny and has a great conversion rate. Not everybody, but like a much larger percentage opens, they click, they buy. You can have a much more profitable email list that's small, or you can have, 10 or 100x and have people who aren't opening, who aren't clicking, who aren't buying. And so what's the value of having that larger quote unquote audience, wherever it's hanging out in your email service provider or on your social media or wherever you're collecting that information. But then if nobody is engaging with you, if nobody's buying from you, then you're just absorbing the cost of having a larger email list because there is an expense to the size.
Yes. So that's really my biggest concern, is that I want women, for their sanity. Let's just talk some facts for a second. So one of my favorite things to do with social media is to do research and to listen and to ask questions and to have polls. And so some of the data that I've got from my Instagram community is really telling. 91% of them feel like social media is not accurately portraying small business ownership.
Ooh, that's cool.
That they're glorifying small business ownership. So my Instagram community is brilliant.
Well, they're following you, so they must be doing something right.
86% of them responded that they feel like the online business culture promotes that your revenue is tied to your value as a person and as a human being, that your revenue and financial success is now creating an identity. And that has also been discussed on this CoffeeZilla. He's got a YouTube channel. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he interviewed a professor at Copenhagen Business School about fake entrepreneurship. And the reason why entrepreneurship we're actually seeing a decline in like valuable entrepreneurship, which is actually a problem.
Yeah.
Because it's become identity based. It's about their identity. I just want to call myself an entrepreneur. Like there's a status to that. And he talks about it in there as well. And then 100% of my Instagram population said that in 2022, prioritizing their mental health is mission critical. And we have to really consider how our financial situation and outcomes impact our mental health, our level of stress and worry. Gallup has done a poll, and small business owners, 61% of them have reported experiencing daily worry, which is dramatically higher than their male counterparts, and linking it to money-related issues, including things like access to capital and
right.
Money knowledge and things like that.
But I think to a certain extent, the worry would also come from that lack of financial literacy of if you don't know what your cash flow is going to be that month, you're going to worry about whether or not you can pay your expenses or pay yourself. Or if your expenses are so high that you aren't paying yourself, then you're going to be freaking out about the fact that your business isn't making money. But if you don't even know what your profit numbers are, it's something that I struggled with for my first couple of years of business too, where it was like, I could tell you what my top line revenue was. I could tell you what all the money the business was making, but it wasn't until I got to tax season that I was like, oh, that was not a great year for me. But I wasn't keeping a finger on the pulse of how much I was taking home because I wasn't paying myself regularly. I just let the money sit in my business banking account, or I would take money when I needed it, but it wasn't on a regular, rhythm of now I pay myself on the first of the month and I pay myself through Gusto. So I know that I'm going to be paying my taxes. And you're like, I didn't have that knowledge that was something that I should be setting up. Or how much I should be paying myself. Or, there was so much hesitation about doing things wrong that I just wasn't doing them at all.
Yeah. And, we're at an inflection point. We are at an inflection point. And I know a lot of women small business owners don't take in as much news and business news and economic news and financial news beyond kind of what they are getting in their feeds, which is largely based on algorithm, is largely based on recycled content, is largely based on confirmation bias, because they feel like that's overwhelming and that's scary. I'm not saying they're bad people because they don't take in this information. I'm saying, I understand this is a pain point, but we're also at an inflection period. And when you look at all what's happening around us, so I've been in the online space for 10 years. You could spit and make money, in 2014, 15, 16, 17. It was real easy. You didn't have to have a lot of business knowledge. You didn't have to have a lot of business acumen. I mean, heck, I've watched people just have one lucky break in a Facebook group where the Facebook group owner of a 10,000 person Facebook was like, hey, you should go work with so-and-so because she's amazing. And the next thing you know, her business was like 10xing overnight. That's not reality. But these are the things that were happening, and that's slowing down. That's not happening anymore. Your buyers have been scammed. They have been grifted on. And especially women, because women are the largest group of people who are entering small business ownership. And if you don't think the marketers know that you are a prime target for them, they are getting real crafty with the way they market based on identity. So if your business has problems, you're bad and wrong. It's something wrong with your mindset.
Right. It's not that your business model isn't working a certain way.
You just need to sit down and do a math problem.
Yeah.
And it's becoming self-reinforcing. We're watching these messages become self-reinforcing. Lots of people like talking to overthinkers. And as somebody with ADHD, I'd like to give this the big middle finger. But you're an overthinker. Stop being such an overthinker. That's a mindset. We need to do this about, we need to fix your overthinking. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a deep thinker.
Yeah.
Maybe processing my thoughts is my genius.
Yeah, that's really concerning to me. I haven't seen that show up but I'm also trying very hard to not take in this kind of input for me right now. But I think that overthinking is a strength of mine, and maybe not overthinking, but processing information. Right. It's gathering information from a wide variety of sources and trying to find patterns in there. And if somebody tries to tell me stop overthinking and do this instead, that's a red flag for me, because I'm like, well, what am I not thinking about? What are you not thinking about? If you think that there's something here, what are you trying to keep me from knowing about how things are actually working by gaslighting me into believing that there's something wrong with me, or that I don't need to know that piece of things? I believe in simplification, but I'm concerned about people oversimplifying to tell their own narrative and to shut you off from information that can be valuable.
So what's happening is we have a mass amount of women who are looking for the new frontier of business. And they're flocking to the internet in droves, like the pioneering days when people were flocking out west for the gold rush, right? Like we've got women flocking to the internet. And the internet's a big place.
Yeah.
But they're finding social media. And they think that is the internet.
Mm.
And that is the way, right? And so then they get then now they're in the matrix. And now they're taking in all these messages about how bad and wrong they are. And they don't know what they don't know. But they know they have some blind spots, and they're so willing to trust somebody else over trusting themselves that they wind up buying into all of these marketing tactics that are very expensive and don't really yield a result. And that is where their profitability is flying out the window. Why aren't business influencers and web celebs talking about profitability? Who benefits when you don't profit?
They do, because you're spending money with them, right?
Who benefits when people tell you you're in scarcity? You have a scarcity mindset. Don't be scrimping and saving. Scrimping and saving is bad. I think saving is the best thing ever, because when I am more discerning with my dollars, I don't have to fucking work as hard. Oh, just
yeah, that's totally fine.
Out. Right? Like I don't have to work as hard. I'm keeping more of what I make, and then I'm not chasing all the new dollars in the door.
Yeah. And there are ways you can use your money to make money passively that aren't passive income. It's called investing your money.
Right. And so,
but that's a totally different conversation.
So how can this is my whole, how do we unhook people from this? And I think what was really interesting, and again, I said we're at a real inflection point, so I'm bringing a lot of things together here. I was watching the Lula Rich documentary, And what I found most fascinating about the LuLaRich documentary is if you're an MLM, fine, I don't care. Like I'm literally make money how you want to make money. I think that lots of people start in MLMs and realize that's not the way and there's a better way, but they like being independent and they like making their own money. And then they start small businesses. I'm not judging anybody how anybody makes money, but this is my point. They enter into an MLM and they're told you're running your own business. You're not.
You're a distributor.
You're a distributor for somebody else. Okay. It is not your business. And then they're hyping them up around lifestyle. They're hyping them up around abundance. And since people don't really understand what wealth is, especially in this country, we associate it with more things. And so they start to go that path. And then what was really fascinating in LuLaRich was that then they started to encourage them to have their husbands retire. Because then if you are out there buying all your Louis Vuitton, your trucks, and your husband's retired, guess what?
You are dependent upon that income stream.
You are now enslaved.
Yeah.
And you don't have a choice. However, what could have solved this problem? A little bit of business knowledge, a little bit of business literacy, and a little bit of financial literacy. Yeah. I watched a woman on the show spend $55,000. I'm going to pull out my calculator. I wasn't planning on doing math right now.
Live math happening now.
Because this really fascinated me. And this was like when I started to feel like this is a mandate for me and not just a mission. All right. So this woman went and she spent, some of them were making 6-figure like checks from enrollments each month. Wow. They were making, these women who got in early were making a lot of money. Yeah. And one of them went and spent $55,000, took her $55,000 check and bought a truck and bought a new truck and then winds up going bankrupt by the end of her tenure as a LuLaRoe distributor. Now, if she took that $55,000 and instead put it in just your like total stock market index fund, right? And figure she was in her 30s. So let's give her 30 years for retirement. And the compound interest over the last 50 years is on average about 11%. Let's be conservative, say 7%. She would have turned that into $418,000
in 30 years by investing it. Yeah.
Right. And instead she's bankrupt.
Yeah.
And now I've been bankrupt and now needs to spend 11 years repairing her financial situation from declaring bankruptcy. And that was just one check. They were getting multiples of these.
Oh my gosh.
So when you have just some of this information, and listen, this isn't just happening in MLMs. Go watch some of these cult documentaries, these MLM documentaries, and you start to draw the parallels between that and the online business industry.
Yeah, and our friend Maggie's been talking about this a lot too.
Maggie Patterson and Michelle Mazur, that podcast Duped, right? And if we can just get more of this knowledge and talk more plainly and be willing to be beginners and not experts and not go, well, I know that already, or that's, I don't want to, that's new, learning something new is scary or any of those things. But if we could just be the slightest bit brave and take a tiny step, we could be keeping so much more of our money than we are and using that to generate greater wealth passively.
And I also think like maintaining our wealth, holding on to our income, but also making more by charging more.
Yes.
Like it's okay if your business model is low cost, high volume, but you're going to have to hustle to get the amount of people into your funnel to do a $50 product, $100 product and sell thousands and thousands and thousands of them. Or if you're an expert, which is who you are talking to, the folks who have this high level of expertise, don't sell $50 products, sell $50,000 contracts. And you only have to sell one.
Right. So let's unpack this for a hot second.
Yes, please.
There's nothing wrong with low dollar products per se. And this is where we lack a lot of nuance in this conversation. Membership sites, low dollar products, those are great if you're working a 9 to 5 and want a side hustle, another revenue stream. All for that. Those products are great if you already have established consistent revenue coming in and you want another revenue stream. Great. As long as you're doing it because you want another revenue stream and it's fun, and you're not doing it because you're trying to get the people to pay you who keep telling you you're too expensive, they are never going to buy from you, stop.
Wait, let me just say that again to make sure that we hear it. If you are currently running something that is a higher price offer and people are saying you're too expensive, then making something less expensive does not mean that they will suddenly buy from you. The objection is not necessarily the cost of your service. It's how they portray the value of what it is that you're trying to give them.
Correct. And they're not valuing you.
Mm-hmm.
And you never want to work with them ever, ever, ever. Because we don't work with people who don't value us. Ever. Period. End of story. Don't do it. So there's a place for these offers when you might be ready, when you might be considering it, but they are a lot harder to sell. They are harder to sell than a higher dollar offer. So if you're going to be spending your time somewhere, I'd like to see you spending your time on selling a premium offer. However, here's what the marketers know. The marketers know that you don't want to sell. The marketers know that you don't want to have difficult conversations. The marketers know that you don't feel comfortable or confident communicating your value and owning your area of expertise. So they are giving you a let off. They're saying, no problem. You don't have to do any of those things. Sell a $47 product. People are just going to click on a link and buy. You won't even have to talk to them. And you go, awesome. And they go, it's going to take some time and some work. And women love work. Women love to work. Women love to work for free. Women have been conditioned to do all the free work, all the annoying little tasks that nobody else wants to do. Women will raise their hand over and over and over again. So they're like, no problem. I got this. Hold my beer.
Yeah.
And then
I can hustle. I can do the work. Watch me.
I can do it. I can sell 4,100 $47 products to get to, revenue that will actually allow me to feed my family, and then have to do it year after year after year after year.
Month after month after month.
Right. Hold my beer. And then they go, oh, wait, I can't afford beer. So don't worry about the beer. Right. You're being manipulated. They're using your internal psychology against you.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to do the work to reverse your own internal psychology, and by the way, this is the work, because as a business owner, you have to constantly fight against human behavior. Think about it. Human behavior is comfort seeking,
protect yourself,
fear avoidant, risk avoidant. It's our brains.
We don't want to change. Our brains want to keep us where we are. They do not want us to change anything about our lives because that is a fear of the unknown. Right. Fear of the unknown, fear of uncertainty, all those things. Every single thing that a business owner has to face every single day. Right. So if you cannot let them manipulate your internal psychology, you have to control that. That is the one thing you actually can control. Inflection point. We've got inflation happening. Right. And so people are like, oh my gosh, inflation, freaking out about inflation. You can't control inflation, but you can control how you think about inflation and how you run your business during inflationary periods. Yeah. You can control the way you think about it. So why are so many people allowing marketers into that protective, safe space in our brains? I don't get it. Why are we letting people tell us how to think? I think because it's scary to blaze your own trail, and it's much easier to follow somebody else's framework. And if somebody can promise you that their system works, then there's comfort in knowing that someone has been there before you. And if you don't know your numbers, which is where you and I really get along, if you don't know your numbers, then you can believe someone else and saying, oh, it'll just work out. And so then, you chase every sale instead of how much money do I need to make overall? How much money do I need to live on? And then how much money do I need my business to make in order to have the take home pay? And, it requires the math. And math is
so this is what's interesting is that marketers will tell you people won't buy information or knowledge. They won't buy competence. They'll buy confidence. So we've got all these feel good about your business, feel good about your money, feel good, feel confident, feel like this manufactured. It's all right. It's all manufactured, but really you need to be buying competence.
Yes.
Right. And so that's why for me, it's about democratizing business education. It's about selling competence, skills, tangible things you can take away and use forever and ever and ever. Nobody can take your skills away from you.
No one can take your knowledge away from you. The tools that you can use can go completely under. When I think about the product launch formula that everyone for years and years was doing, the three videos, each of which has an email. They talk about the same pain points because they're following this formula, and it worked really well for a short amount of time. And the half-life on that was about a year. So for about a year, we saw everybody doing these 3-part video series. And then over time, it started to peter out because it stopped working as well because everyone was doing it. But the skill of knowing how to talk about what it is that you sell does not go away. It's just the format of the 3-part video series, the tactic versus the strategy. And when we're talking about sales processes, it's nothing about the sales process has changed. It's just the way that you're packaging it up can be different. And so the tools, whether that's the 3-part video series or the webinar with this format in your slides or the social media to go into the DMs or whatever that is, those are going to change all the time. But the skills of knowing how to position your offer so that way your audience is interested in it, knowing how to price your offer so that way you're actually making money from it, knowing how to track how profitable that offer is, how much time are you actually spending on that service? What is your conversion rate for that product? How many people do you actually need to get into your website and into your email list in order to make a sale? Knowing that information is not something that people can take away from you or wave a hand at and say, oh, no, my way's better. You're overthinking it.
Right. And here's what this boils down to. There is a cost to making money. There's a cost to selling, and there is a cost to delivering. And what we need to find is the balance, the harmony between the cost of selling and the cost of delivering. And where you're picking up a lot of cost in selling, a lot of cost in money, a lot of cost in time, and a lot of cost in energy is when you are putting out reams of content, new content all the time, content. I want you to log your hours that you spend on content creation and include that into all of your working hours, not just the delivery of the service. And I tell you, you're better off working at Starbucks. I can almost guarantee it, right? So why are we putting out so much content? Well, that's what the marketers are telling us to do, right? Or, okay, we are going to sell this low ticket offer and we're going to enroll you through a funnel, through a webinar, and we need to make 5 sales a month. Do you know how many people you need to get on the webinar to convert to those sales? How are you going to get those folks on? How are you driving that traffic to a webinar? Paid advertising. Wait, allow me to bring up some statistics and data on paid advertising, if you will, just for giggles.
I am here for statistics.
Okay, so Scott Galloway, I adore him. I don't know if you know him. He writes the blog No Mercy, No Malice, and he did a blog post called Carcinogens. It was epic, and he quotes in there, I didn't know this existed, but he quotes and references the World Federation of Advertisers, that they have this report called a Compendium of Ad Fraud Knowledge for Media Investors.
That is a mouthful.
It is, but why are people who have no idea that this exists running ads?
Yeah.
So in this report, 88% of clicks on ads are fraudulent.
What?
I was blown away. Click farms, bots, pay for clicks, 88% of clicks on ads are fraudulent. It makes a lot of sense because Facebook has no regulation around this. Like it's a slot machine. You put money in and you hope you hit a jackpot, but the lights are always on over there for Zucks, right?
Yeah.
He has no control over any of this. So here's another quote from that article with Scott Galloway. A study by MIT professor Catherine Tucker found that even targeting something as basic as gender was unsuccessful more than half the time, i.e., it was worse than random.
Wow.
A Nielsen analysis of a household income adjusted ad campaign found that only 25% of its ads were reaching the right households. As much as 65% of location targeted ad spend is wasted. Plaintiffs in a class action suit against Facebook have alleged its targeting algorithm's accuracy was between 9% and 41%, and quoted internal Facebook emails describing the company's targeting as crap and abysmal.
So you're spending a lot of money on ads that aren't getting the people that you want to get. And then you're spending that money and you're driving them to whatever your sales process is, which may be a Facebook group, it may be a webinar, it may be an automated email series. But if you're not getting, it's like not calories in, calories out, but like junk in, junk out. If you're not getting good leads, then you're not going to make good sales. They're not going to be a good fit for what it is that you're doing.
Right. So let's talk about solutions.
Yes, I was just going to say, I feel like we've been a little bit pessimistic and we're not usually this bad.
Actually, honestly, I think this is all great.
Yeah, you got to know the lay of the land.
Right? I think this is great because now once we have information, we can make better decisions.
Yeah, so what's the alternative to this, Tara?
Okay, so here's alternatives. Speaking to experts running service-based businesses, right? Because we need to know what the business model is and apply an appropriate strategy. That's one way, right? I'm not against ads. I think ads can possibly be helpful. I haven't personally run any, but if I were to run ads, one, I obviously want to know this information.
Yeah.
And know what I'm getting into and know that I'm gambling. And is that the risk that I want to take? Maybe it is. Personally, for me, I have a really high actual lifetime value of my customer.
Yeah.
So I can afford some ad spend to see what happens. I can afford to play around. But most people don't have this data.
Yeah, if you don't know what your average sales cycle is or what your customer lifetime value is or what your cost per acquisition is, then how do you know how much you can spend?
Right. All right. We want to focus on the most profitable strategies to get you to the revenue that you need. The revenue that you need.
How do you know how much revenue you need, Tara?
Not the shiny objects, not the $1 million. Listen, if you want to do that, you got to pass a whole bunch of benchmark steps anyway.
You're not going to leap from a $10 business to $1 million business. You have to get through 100,000, 200,000, 500,000.
Right. And along the way, you're going to be able to make better decisions about whether or not that's the responsibility that you want to take on. Yeah. And for most people and most women, it is not. What women are looking for is they are either looking for the ability to provide for their families, provide the upgrades, pay for college for their kids, take some fun family vacations. And whether they're thinking about it or not, I want them to be building wealth. And I want them to consider that they don't have to be 65 to retire. They could be any age to retire as long as they've built the wealth to do so. And I want them to realize that we do not want you at 69 years old shaking your ass on reels.
Nobody wants to see that.
Okay. And feeling like you're in this dire need for money. We want to utilize your best earning years now and leverage that for later. And I think people just talking about retirement. It's really unsexy, but I've decided I'm done at 55 and I think that's sexy as hell.
Yeah.
I'm just going to cut 5-10 years off of that.
But recognizing if you want to retire at 65, at 60, whatever that is, then you need to be putting aside money now, which needs to come out of your business. So, my household, we contribute $50,000 or $60,000 a year to our retirements now because we do want to retire early. But that also means that my business needs to make $100,000 to be able to put $50,000 into my retirement accounts.
Yes. So people don't realize the intricacy of their personal finances to their business finances.
Yes.
And so usually I see this as a giant disaster in my entire career when I've been in businesses where the CEO spends more than he earns or spends as much as he earns. And then what happens is he needs that money. Where is he going to get that money from, or she going to get that money from? The business. And now we have chaos because we have to go make more money, because I got to pay for the car and the house and the this and the that and all the things that my luxury lifestyle and right. So if we can look at what our needs are, and here's the other thing, we have a lot of people who are not able, their business is not able to support even their basic needs because they're so focused on like the luxuries that they may have one day.
Yeah.
And that's not happening. We need to cover things in order before we can have this huge income and impact.
It's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs
It is,
in terms
100%.
of what your business can do. Like you need to pay for your food and your shelter and your water before you start worrying about, what are the self-actualizations or the luxury vacations or the fancy cars.
But people don't want to buy that.
No.
So the web celebs and the marketers are marketing self-actualization before basic needs and human needs, right? And that's why we're all getting so messed up. Is because we can't actually hit these things because we're too focused on this nebulous
perfect
goal, like out here, this thing, right? So let's just get honest with ourselves and look at what it is that we need to provide for our families. What are those luxury upgrades that you want? What do you need to thrive in your life? And this isn't about scrimping and saving. This is about living a good life, right? But what do you actually need? And then how can you translate that into salary and into revenue? And if you're like, how do you do that, Tara? Help me. I do. And it's free. So we have a free calculator, a revenue goal calculator. And what you do is you put in your expenses, and I have a 15-minute video that walks them through. You put in your expenses and it tells you how much money you would need to make on a yearly basis. And then what it does is using profit first numbers, it does profit first math for you and tells you what that would equate to in revenue. So if you need to make $100,000 a year, take home, bringing home your CEO pay,
putting in your bank account, not your business, but your personal bank account.
It's going to tell you that you need to be earning about $200,000 in revenue in your business if you're going to operate on a profit first model. And the calculator will also tell you at that point how much you have for expenses, how much you're going to pay in taxes. So this is a calculator that you're going to want to download and use over and over and over again as your personal financial situation changes.
Yeah.
As your business financial situation changes. Because it's really amazing what is possible for us when our money has a purpose, what's possible for us when we have enough.
Yes.
Because that's when more than enough happens. But everybody's like chasing more than enough without having enough.
Yeah. And I love this calculator too, because my husband and I sat down and looked at it together. And I went, and what you were talking about earlier with the, if you get a big check, then you should retire your husband play, we sat down and looked at how much is his salary from his full-time job and how much would my business need to make to not just cover our expenses, but also replace his salary. And that was a big change in my awareness of what my goals should be. It doubled what I want the business to make next year. Not that I want to retire him right away, but that I want to have that number. I wasn't thinking big enough.
Yeah.
And in general, I think pretty big. And this doubled the number that I want to make. And then I kind of, before I started to panic and go, oh, holy shit, how am I going to make that? I was like, okay, but no, the same things that are working if you know what's working for you, you can do more of it. But before you can say, like pulling a revenue number out of the air, I want to make $1 million or $500,000 or whatever. What does that mean for your life?
Right. Right. And then here's the thing. Then when you're like, you have that number, then you understand the strategy. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, how do you get to $200,000 a year? I'm just using this as the rough estimate here.
It's nice to do easy math.
Yeah, like, how would you get there? What's the quickest path? What's the most profitable way? And, the most profitable way to do that is to sell to the leads you already have.
Mm-hmm.
You all already have leads. You just don't see them, but I promise you they're there. To really get good at sales and converting warm and hot leads before you go running ads for cold leads. If you cannot convert your warm and hot leads to more revenue, like hell, you're converting your cold leads.
Yes.
Like hell. It just light the dollars on fire. Like, it's not happening.
It's so true.
That's going to click and buy. No, they're not. It's going to take you have to put them through a sales process.
Yeah.
Not going to click and buy. So, really understanding your target market, really understanding the free tools you have to help you convert, and referrals. When you focus on the people who are paying you and you get them excellent results, they're going to go talk about it. Here's my favorite story so I always tell people, just think back to when the internet didn't exist. What would you do?
Yeah, you talk to people you already know.
So my husband was a triathlete, and he had this triathlon community. And then a bunch of them were business owners and stuff like that. They would refer to each other. Nobody did anything without checking in with this community friend. Does anybody know a plumber, a massage therapist, a hairstylist, a bike repair shop, a landscaper, a pool person? Like, nothing happened outside of this community. And so say the community was like 100 people, and then 20 of those people bought from people within the community. And then those 20 people, when they're asked, who do you know who does massage, who does landscaping? Now you're referring outside people to inside the community.
Yep.
And now they're referring, look how big the network gets really fast.
Yeah. Yeah, the team that cleans my house one of them was telling me about it this morning, where she was like, I don't need to do advertising because my clients just tell other people about me. There's always somebody looking for a good house cleaner. And when like my entire street now uses my house cleaning team because it's like, well, they're already here. So they didn't even have to knock door to door. I was just telling my neighbors, and my neighbors told my other neighbors. Like, it doesn't have to be that, they don't have to go and run Facebook ads to everyone who's in our, 5-town vicinity. They can just tell people to refer and give referral bonuses and have that consistent, high quality service. It doesn't always have to be super complex.
Yeah, it's just not that hard.
It's not that hard.
But
we're making it so much harder than we need to.
It's simple, but it's not easy. And the reason why it's not easy is because it's not overnight. And we're being sold that these things have to happen overnight or they're not worth it. And it's a lie.
It is.
It's a lie. So I really just want everybody to make the most profitable dollars that they can make. And it starts with knowing what your best revenue goal is, knowing what is already working for you, focusing on the people who are already paying you, and understanding how to sell.
There it is. All right. Well, guys, I am so thrilled that Tara was able to share so much with us today. Definitely head over to her website. I will have a link in the show notes. And right there, you can grab that revenue goal calculator and start playing with your numbers and taking a look at how much it costs to run a business, and then maybe taking some time to look at your own expenses and the revenue and where you can make more and spend less time.
Meg, thanks so much for having me on, because this is not a conversation that's being had in a lot of places.
So true.
And it's really confronting for people to have these conversations, and it's like they almost don't believe it when they hear it, because it's such a different conversation. And I just really want to thank you for starting this and allowing this conversation to happen here.
It is my pleasure, because I believe in what you do. So thank you so, so much for being here. And I will talk to you soon, Tara. Thank you.
Absolutely. If you found this podcast valuable, help us develop more bold leaders in the world by sharing this episode with your friends, colleagues, and other bold leaders. Also, if you haven't done so already, please leave a review. I consider reviews like podcast currency, and it's the one thing you can do to help us out here at the Bold Leadership Revolution HQ. We would be so grateful for it. Special thanks goes to Stacey Harris from Uncommonly More, who is the producer and editor of this podcast. Go check them out for all your digital marketing and content creation needs. Be sure to tune into the next episode to help you embrace your ambition and leave the grind behind.